Well, it's time for another Championship Manager special, and this one has probably been a little while in the offing in terms of the man leaving his club. But of course, there has been a pretty swift replacement at Blackburn Rovers, who this Friday night have swapped John for John, with Jon Dahl Tomasson leaving and John Eustace, the former Birmingham City manager, joining as head coach. We're going to talk about the old man, talk about the new man, and what we think of Blackburn for the future. So hopefully you're looking forward to all of that. But as always, we are going to start with the old man. And I'm more worried, to be honest, that this managerial change is going to affect my prediction for the weekend. You can find them up in the eye above. But let's have a look at Jon Dahl Tomasson's time in charge. And I almost feel we need to split this into two, because the first season was an incredibly promising one. He managed to keep the momentum of previous seasons under Tony Mowbray and stay in that hunt for the playoffs, of course missing out narrowly on the final day after that remarkable turnaround at Millwall, which ended up helping Luton, so thanks to Blackburn for that. But the summer became a frustrating spell, and of course it's not the first time that there had been talks about Jon Dahl Tomasson leaving as it happened this week, because there were talks at times during the summer window. Clearly frustrated about the loss of key players. We knew for a while that Ben Brereton Diaz was going to go at the end of his deal. Of course, Thomas Kaminski moved to my club, Luton Town, and you can see how influential that's been since on both sides of the agreement. And we'll talk a bit about that and Blackburn's defensive record later. But also going into the January window, after a poor run of form, after a bit of frustration, the way they then missed out on a deadline day signing. And it's not the first time it's happened at Blackburn. It all just felt like it was a bit frustrating behind the scenes for Jon Dahl Tomasson. And in the end, you look back and think, well, perhaps he should have just gone in the summer and it all would have been ended pretty amicably, wouldn't it? But as it is, he departs the club with a 44% win rate, 40 wins from his 90 games, 137 scored, pretty similar amount conceded. They've been an entertaining watch. And to be fair, he's developed young players. He tried to do things the right way. But losing key players and not replacing them this year, they were always going to go backwards a bit. But it has been a pretty rotten run. And obviously against QPR, against Huddersfield at home, you've got to start picking up points in those games, because Blackburn now, just 5 points clear of safety, are in a little bit of trouble going into this weekend's fixtures, where of course the new man John Eustace will be watching home to fellow strugglers Stoke City. It's interesting the fact that he's watching this one, because of course that means his first game in charge will be Birmingham away on Tuesday night. That's going to be pretty interesting, isn't it? They've not really recovered from him being sacked at the club back in October. And John Eustace comes in with a very good record, so let's have a little look through the statement, because Rovers keen to point out some important information. They're delighted to welcome the 44-year-old on a 2.5-year deal, so showing him a little bit of commitment there after a successful spell at Birmingham City. Very keen to point out that he was a progressive and forward-thinking coach, going against what perhaps was said in a statement from Birmingham when he departed. A clear footballing philosophy. He'll be joined by his trusted assistant Matt Gardiner, who he worked with there. Obviously, we know all about his playing career, but he did have management stints before, for Blackburn fans who don't know, at Kidderminster Harriers, where he had a 53% win rate, took them to the playoffs, did a pretty good job. And of course as a caretaker at QPR in pretty difficult circumstances before his stint at Birmingham, which ended with a 33% win rate, which doesn't look great on paper. You've got to remember that season where he came into Birmingham, they'd been in defensive battles and relegation battles for a year or two. They'd had a lot of problems off the pitch. Half the stadium was being closed. There were protests against the owners. They were a club that most people expected to go down last season or be very close to it. And in the end, he had them comfortable pretty much all year. They had to play a style of football that he probably didn't want to play. And that was shown by the change in home style this season with them. But he did his job incredibly effectively and made an extremely disciplined team at the back, which is something Blackburn are going to need for the rest of this season. I mean, they came to Kenilworth Road on the opening day last season. They played for a 0-0 draw and they got it pretty comfortably. Like, for whatever you think of the way it was set up, it was remarkably well coached. And that sort of came across throughout John Eustace's spell, because you look at the young players that Birmingham brought in last summer and the way they tried to evolve the team, and you were seeing all those goals coming from wide areas, taking advantage of young and athletic players with brilliant delivery, and then also having those big strikers that could take advantage whilst adding a bit of goal dust in the middle. I know Birmingham's away record wasn't great towards the end of his tenure, but he obviously quite infamously left them in 5th or 6th place, and we all know what happened after that. And ironically, it'll be Tony Mowbray in the Birmingham dugout when it comes to the Blackburn game on Tuesday. So going to be a very strange scenario to watch for most of the fans from both clubs. But John Eustace did a good job at Birmingham. We know that he was sacked incredibly harshly. I think pretty much everyone in the footballing world has commented on that. And we obviously talked about it in the Wayne Rooney special. He's got experience working with the Republic of Ireland as an assistant as well. And he seems to be very happy to be at Blackburn, having allegedly turned down other opportunities. He was said to have been offered the Bristol City job a couple of months ago, but not taken it. And of course, we all know Blackburn are a very big club on paper. A club I grew up just getting used to being a Premier League football team consistently. But unfortunately, over the long haul with this ownership, it has been a difficult period. And obviously, finances have been incredibly limited, which has made things difficult. However, despite losing their best players, despite sliding down the table this season, there is still some gold dust in this Blackburn team. And going into the rest of the season, can John Eustace be the man to get the best out of them? That's the question. Well, let's have a look at what Blackburn have got going forward and where their problems have been in the past, because you only have to take one glance at the Championship table to see where it's really been going wrong. Because Blackburn Rovers, even beyond bottom side Rotherham, have the worst defensive record in the league, with 55 conceded in 29 games, almost a rate of 2 per game, and they've actually lost the most games of any side out of the bottom 3, and only Sheffield Wednesday have lost more in the whole division, which shows they're not drawing games either. Famously with Jon Dahl Tomasson last year, they went the first 27 games without a draw. This season, they've only got 3, which is still the least in the division alongside Leicester. So with the table as it is at the moment, it is one of those situations where John Eustace probably hasn't got the pressure to play great football for the rest of this season. It is about picking up results. It is about being a bit more pragmatic and finding a way to protect a pretty fragile defensive line. Of course, the goalkeeper is highly thought of, but he's not as good as Thomas Kaminski, and I know that from the fact that he saved us countless points in the Premier League this year. And of course, the defensive changes, the expected goals against to save ratio, it all shows in favour of a big loss there. However, defensively, they're not hugely strong either. They've obviously lost a star young midfielder this window to Crystal Palace, albeit for a fee they probably couldn't turn down. And while they haven't replaced Ben Brereton Diaz from last summer as such, Sammy Schmodix has stepped up and has been in absolutely brilliant form for the most part this season, with Sam Gallagher coming back and contributing a little bit now as well. It does look like there are the ingredients there for Blackburn to keep scoring goals. And after all, in that bottom half of the table, only Plymouth have scored more. So the suggestion is that Blackburn have got goals in them. But you cannot afford to be that porous at the back. We saw under Tomasson at times they were trying to play their way out from the back. But at times you have got to have that balance, because when you get into poor runs and confidence is low, just taking that split second too long can cause big problems. And in some games, their setup has caused massive issues. There's no doubt in that. But it's the thing that John Eustace was able to achieve at Birmingham when he didn't have the players in the style he wanted. And we've seen with him at Kidderminster and at Birmingham that he's capable of playing in both styles. He was the assistant to Mark Warburton in an incredibly entertaining QPR team as well. So don't think that just because of the last job John Eustace did, he's going to be playing defensive football all the way. I would expect it to be fairly pragmatic the rest of this year, particularly away from home, to try and pick up some results where Blackburn haven't been great this year. 16 points on the road, not an awful total, but 29 conceded is a massive problem. At home, they've actually struggled to score a bit more. They've struggled to win games, but it's just about whether John Eustace can turn a few of those defeats into draws, and if they can still pick up the odd wins, they should be absolutely fine. But there are a lot of clubs looking around going, well, we should be fine. Because a few weeks ago, it looked like it was pretty much done and dusted. The bottom 3 were well adrift, but QPR, and as it stands at the time of recording, Sheffield Wednesday are 2-0 up at half-time, and I've just paused it to do this video. It looks like it's going to be very tight to the bottom 3. That puts an awful lot of pressure on sides such as Swansea, Millwall, Blackburn, Birmingham, Stoke, Huddersfield, who have all been dragged back into this battle. And for John Eustace, it's just about doing enough now. So pretty football isn't going to be the immediate concern. But what I am looking at is the summer transfer window and thinking, can they get their work done early? Because it was the most impressive thing Birmingham did in the summer that John Eustace was there, which was They really improved the squad. They got younger players in early, players who are more dynamic, who could contribute to a more attacking and aggressive style. And while obviously it didn't have the same commercial value behind it as having Wayne Rooney as the face of it, though we've seen that doesn't always influence the results well, John Eustace have put together a really good side who, even in his last 2 games there, were really entertaining at home, really front-footed and creating chances, which with players such as Sam Gallagher, if they can get good people around them, Schmodik's obviously contributing massively at the moment too. I do feel there's the nucleus there for Blackburn. And obviously I wouldn't expect John Eustace to come in unless he's going to be back. Now, I don't mean back by spending millions and millions of pounds. I just mean back to bring in young players that are going to help him improve. And obviously, with Blackburn having such a brilliant academy system, finding players very young as well that they're able to bring into the squad, it does on paper look like with patience it could be a match made in heaven and maybe closer to what we saw in the Tony Mowbray era with the progression, but maybe with that next step and that added bit of defensive grit as well. So overall, I do feel this is a really good appointment. But the big thing is getting through this season because, quite frankly, from 16th down, anyone could get dragged into it and anyone could go on a poor run. We know that Swansea are playing all of the top 7 at the minute. We know Birmingham Blackburn is huge on Tuesday. Can Blackburn just pull themselves away from it in the next couple of games? And all they've really got to do is improve at the back. If John Eustace can pull that off, they will survive because Schmodix and the like are scoring enough goals. Then does he get the backing in the summer? Can they do their work properly instead of these stupid errors and these stupid dilemmas and controversies at the end of every window where something's gone wrong, someone's been sold for a poor value, an email's not been sent, whatever it might be. Because Blackburn's too big and too good of a club to not be doing things like that. And they've got some good people working there. Greg Broughton had been at Luton before. We know the qualities he's got. He's a good spot of a player as well. The future could be bright at Blackburn here. And I said it before when Danny Roll went to Sheffield Wednesday. And ironically, I said it when Tony Mowbray went to Birmingham after the Wayne Rooney debacle. This could be a little bit of a masterstroke. And I feel if Blackburn can push on, get survival this season, then maybe they can start to look forward, have a comfortable, secure season next year when they're not worrying about this stuff at the bottom. And then maybe in his final year, his second full season, look to push on back towards the top 6. But who knows in the Championship? Looks like there's some strong clubs that are going to be coming up from League One. But that's just my opinion on the appointment of John Eustace. We do normally ask if the manager's going to last the full 2.5 years of their contract. And actually on this occasion, I think there's a half-decent chance. Whether or not he's able to evolve the style of football may cause that next season because under Tomasson and under Mowbray, it had generally been quite attacking and aggressive football. If he's not able to evolve the style next year after doing what he needs to this season, that's the only risk I really see to it. Because I think on the pitch, he'll do well enough to stay in the job. And I do think Blackburn could have got this really right with this appointment. But those are just my thoughts on the appointment of John Eustace at Blackburn to replace the departing Jon Dahl Tomasson. It doesn't matter what I think, no, does it? What do you think if you're a Blackburn Rovers fan? Are you excited? Are you happy? Or are you underwhelmed with this appointment and managerial change? Let us know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, please do chuck a thumbs up and subscribe to regular content from the Honest Football Podcast. Turn that notification bell on as we'll be back again on Sunday with more Championship predictions as we look ahead to his first game in charge of former club Birmingham City on Tuesday. As well as the Championship predictions every match day, we also do the same with Luton Town Premier League previews. You can find those playlists all up in the eye above, as well as other manager specials and chats with a couple of former Blackburn players. But thank you very much for watching as always. Your support is greatly appreciated. We'll see you back here next time as the Championship predictions return on Sunday.